Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
Those are the fans still clapping from the parade.
Anything going on this year, Chris?
My goodness, already in a month and a half, we've got news story after news story in the world of sports.
It's wild, and it's like I often say on the air, Seattle sports the best in the country, most active in the country, and here we go off a Super Bowl win, which is already going to make this one of the best years in Seattle sports history when you talk about that in the World Cup in itself, regardless of how well any of our other teams may do. Now we got some changing of the guard coming in multiple sports. This is wild.
Yeah, off the field, off the ice, off the court. That's what we always talk about here. And off the field, there is gigantic news regarding the Seahawks that we'll get into in this episode. And there's some news as well when it comes to the potential return of the NBA to Seattle. Adam Silver has spoken once again about an expansion process, and his verbiage is different. Mm-hmm. And we're going to dive into what exactly that means in our Supersonic Minute, something we do every week. And you have a big interview that we've been sitting on.
I know. We did it before the Super Bowl, but we didn't want to get lost in that shuffle. Kirby Moore, the new head coach of Cougars football, did the trip to Seattle. You see this annually. They bring their head football coach out to this area to speak with alums and that sort of things. So this was Kirby's first time here. What a great conversation, a great guy. You can understand about 2 minutes into my interview, just the way he carries himself, the vision he has, why the Cougars brass said, yeah, he's the guy. In addition to, obviously, an impressive resume and pedigree as well.
And I think Coug fans are excited already about what he's done and the recruiting effort and transfers and all that. We'll get into that later in the show, but we always like to start with what's good, what's bad, off the ice, off the court, off the field of play. I just love saying it, and I always try to find the right button.
Hey, you got it.
I got it right this week.
You did.
We call it Four Corners. We touch them all. Niko, what is good this week?
Well, we've got so much to talk about in this show, and it's interesting because you don't know if it's going to be good or bad, the sell of the Seahawks, because I think a lot of 12s recognize that the Allen leadership, whether it was Paul in his time or Jody as the executor of the estate, really did a great job. They weren't like a Jerry Jones hands-on personnel decision, but they also weren't hands-off from a standpoint of they made sure that, there was the big decision a couple years ago to move on from Pete Carroll. Jody saw the larger picture, and as painful as that had to be, look what it yielded just 2 years later, right? So it's, I think the positive in that way is that we, instead of having it be, I wouldn't say it was a cloud because everybody was kind of just rolling with it, but now you have some clarity. Okay, now they are being sold, and now we can dissect a little bit about what's to come in that way. But boy, oh boy, just a massive news story. And we saw the initial ESPN reports. Brady Henderson over there had it before the Super Bowl, and at that point it was denied, but it was something of, hey, we don't want a distraction ahead of Super Bowl 60. But now it's official, and boy, oh boy, inside the arena, this is up our wheelhouse. So we've seen what happens next.
Yeah, we'll be talking about it every week, and to kind of say succinctly what is going on, that they've just announced in what was just a 2-paragraph statement that the team is for sale following the wishes of Paul G. Allen to turn around and donate the money to philanthropy, whatever the sale price may be. They're starting a process suggesting it will last through the off season. Paul Allen bought the team in 1997 contingent on building what is now Lumen Field, a $400 million package involving $300 million in taxpayer money. You talk to people now and they say, well, that was a good investment. That was a lot of hotel motel revenue. They paid for it. And how many hotel and motel rooms are now filled up because of the construction of Lumen Field, also credited with saving football here in Seattle from Ken Behring, who was threatening to move the team to Los Angeles. And so now there are questions because this was long expected after his death in 2018. Jody Allen has been leading the stewardship of the franchise, but there was always known to be language within the will that it had to be sold at a certain point. And it could not be sold after, the team could not be sold after until 25 years after the construction of that stadium, or there would be a 10% fee paid back to the state. Those were the terms. So we knew 25 years later that the team would likely be sold. And yes, you alluded to the initial reports. Now they are verified, and it opens up a lot of questions that we'll get into over the coming weeks about the lease on Lumen Field is up in 5 years.
Right.
The NFL is building a lot of brand new stadiums right now. 8 stadiums across the NFL in various stages of construction and financing. You got to wonder, that's going to be the immediate question, what this means for the future of Lumen Field as well.
Right. And that's a whole bunch of layers to unpack.
Yeah.
Because initially it's okay. History of taxpayers wanting to fund that stuff. And certainly that formula has gotten more and more criticism over the years. Right. And so, but at the same time, and this is actually be my negative in a second here, but it depends on who your owner is. If some owners have enough that they're going to primarily finance this thing. Others, if you're talking about more like a group, so to speak, then it's probably going to need. And then, there's all sorts of other organizations. So the idea of what happens to Lumen Field, it's just impossible to speculate because you need to see who the owner is and how that breaks down into if there's a taxpayer contribution. I mean, you think about Climate Pledge Arena, there was, correct me if I'm wrong, no taxpayer dollars were put into that because it was the Oakview deal and Chris Daniels back and forth on that thing, right? So, boy, oh boy, it's going to be an eventful few months because they're saying the 2026 offseason is when this process will go on. So spitballing, it would be reasonable to think within a few months we might know who the next owner is. The Blazers sale went pretty quick in that way. Then, of course, closing process takes some time after that. But so in that regard, it's going to be an eventful few months.
The one thing I'll say that's good this week is in the mix of this conversation is the idea that the money will have to be put back into philanthropic efforts. That is laid out again in the 2-paragraph statement that was released by the Seahawks. So in theory, we are talking about an $8 to $10 billion sale.
Right.
And that money goes back, potentially a lot of it, into the community and the charitable organizations that Paul Allen supported while he was here with us.
Yeah, huge. Game-changing, really. Yeah. And off the field, certainly in that way as well.
So what don't you like this week?
Well, I don't like... Okay, it's cool that the Seahawks are in everybody's spotlight once again. But, let's not forget that when they were writing them off, the national folks pay so little attention to our corner of the country that they thought this team was only going to win 7 games this offseason. And so now they win the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to be a part of the Seahawks now, right? And so my negative in that way is some of the irresponsible stuff I've seen out there. And I'm going to go to a couple of examples. I was watching a report on a national outlet about how the Seahawks are unlikely to franchise tag Kenneth Walker. And everybody's going, oh, well, he's going to go to a different, he's gone, he's this. One report on this national thing called him Kenneth Walker II. Like, you couldn't even do enough research to get the guy's darn name right.
Yeah.
That's how little they pay attention to Seattle. But they're the experts now. Right? And I'm like, think about this for a minute. In John Schneider's 16 years as Seahawks GM, they've only used the franchise tag twice, an average of once every 8 years. And yet everybody is declaring, well, K9's not getting the franchise tag. He must be gone. Not at all. He could be gone because he's the Super Bowl MVP and will get his salary. But that doesn't mean he's just because he's not getting the franchise. Like, the Seahawks are going to try to sign him. They're probably going to meet with him at the combine and try to hammer that out before he officially kind of hits free agency. But the reality is this was always going to be the plan.
Yeah.
They don't use that method, but because these folks don't pay attention to the Seahawks, and well, they see this, he must be gone. It's irresponsible. And it goes into this, our big story right now is obviously the Seahawks sale being announced, right? And my goodness, there are so many articles. Oh, Jeff Bezos is the front runner. And, people are just throwing names that might make sense. And I understand you got to put something out there, but it's based purely in, speculation, conjecture. Like, it's not like Jeff Bezos has come out with a statement, or it's not like Steve Ballmer, who personally I would love to see. We've seen his passion firsthand. I think he'd be great. But it doesn't mean I'm going to write an article saying Steve Ballmer is a contender because, unless he says it, we don't know. And so there's a lot of 12s out there that after everything that happened 20 years ago this year when Clay Bennett bought the Sonics, that everything that almost happened in the 90s, right, with the M's and Seahawks, are anxious, and understandably so, especially when they learn about that lease date at Lumen Field, right?
Yeah.
And so they're Googling who's the next owner of the Seahawks, and you're seeing all these names. And, one article came up with a potential dream team, of different owners and, different people that could buy it. And it's like, you don't know this. You're just throwing out names to see what sticks. And then there's going to be 12s who think those are really contenders and maybe have false hope or maybe false worry. I don't know what it is. It's just, we're in this era right now where you just throw names just to get clicks. And it's, or we're throwing out hot takes that literally aren't even accurate about if we're talking about the roster itself for the Seahawks. And it's messed up, man. It's just, again, because we're on this, now we're paying attention to this quarter of the country everywhere else. And now we think we know. And it's just some of the most foolish stuff I've seen published in some time.
Is that one of the famed Niko rants right there?
I think it was a Niko rant. Does Bill have a rant button? I don't know. He looked like he was searching. But it is like when the guy mispronounced or not mispronounced, but called him Kenneth Walker the second. Like, you don't even know the guy's name. How do you know he's leaving? You certainly don't know how the Seahawks run their business, because if you did, you would. It's noteworthy that they didn't use it, but it didn't matter. Like, I never thought they would.
So you just said throwing names against a wall. I'll just throw one out there that I think is a dark horse, because she was mentioned in particular with the sale of the Portland Trailblazers, Mackenzie Scott.
Yeah.
Who
and that would make sense.
Who has been known to do things philanthropically and has been tied to this community and tied to other charitable organizations. This would seem to check some boxes in terms of keeping the Seahawks with local ownership and also philanthropically based. And also, I think there is some cachet, and we heard it talked about at the Super Bowl, to have a female owner.
Right.
I think that she would check a lot of boxes. Whether she's interested or not, I don't know. But she was mentioned in connection with the Blazers sale, also owned by Jody Allen.
And some of the articles I've seen, there's going to be a dream team of Mackenzie and Linda French Gates. Like, that would be really cool. But they're just saying it because it sounds cool. We haven't heard. Like, we heard about you especially being down there in Media Row and all that. Heard about Mackenzie especially. But it's like, if people are just adding Melinda to it because it would be cool. It's like, no, wait, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
There are people that really 12s that are so euphoric after this win. They just want to make sure they're going to be able to root on this team the rest of their lives. And they're Googling these articles that are just people throwing names to get clicks. And it's irresponsible.
Well, you know what else is irresponsible? How about that for a transition?
Chris rant?
No, but what's bad this week? We covered it on KOMO News. The idea that during the parade that you and I were both at, there were at least 30 drones launched in the air.
Oh, yeah.
Illegally, violating the temporary flight restriction over Lumen Field and over the parade route. There was a response team on the ground that was able to make contact with 7 of those pilots, and an 8th did not respond. And that pilot, according to the King County Sheriff's Department, flew a drone into Lumen Field while 50,000 people were there.
Wow.
And could face federal and state charges. Reckless endangerment charge has been forwarded to the King County Prosecutor's Office on a local level. The feds are also looking at potential charges. And you and I both know from being down at Levi's Stadium, it was news there that a Bay Area man has been charged federally, set to appear in federal court next week for flying a drone into the area where there was an active 49ers game going on in Santa Clara.
Right. Yeah, and there's just so many safety issues there. And let's point out, KOMO was the only one that had FAA approval to have our drone there. And we were so thrilled about that. And then you're seeing all these other ones that you don't know if they're going to lose control of it or any number of things. And it's just dangerous situation. People got to get their act together.
And the reason why it matters is people are concerned. Authorities are concerned. The head of the Washington National Guard is concerned about what could happen during the World Cup, what we've seen overseas with drone warfare. And that's why they're paying close attention to this now and have defense systems in place to actually recognize those drones are in the air over the crowd during the parade.
Crazy.
Well, let's shift gears to something we like to do every week. And there's actually something to talk about this week. The Supersonic Minute. I have to hit the green button.
Are you glad I
the green button?
Are you glad I associated that for you?
So we talk about this every week about movement on the potential return of the Sonics to Seattle. It's interesting that we could be talking about an expansion fee at the same time we're talking about local owners trying to buy the Seahawks. We'll get into that in the weeks ahead. But Adam Silver did talk about expansion this past weekend at NBA All-Star Game. If you've been paying attention every week, we alluded to this coming up last weekend. And in fact, he did seem to push the ball forward on expansion. I want you to carefully listen to his verbiage here when he was asked about a process for expansion. Here's Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner.
In terms of the timeline, and I think I said at the end of last year when we were in Las Vegas that we will make decisions in 2026. I think in fairness to the cities, Seattle and Las Vegas in particular, I've been very clear. I don't want to tease teams. I don't want to tease cities or mislead anyone. I think we wanted to get through collective bargaining, national television deals. We've done that, and now we've turned to it as a league. My sense is at the March Board of Governors meetings, we'll be having further discussions around an expansion process. We won't be voting at the March meeting, but we will likely come out of those meetings ready, prepared to take a next step in terms of potentially talking to interested parties. No, it doesn't have to be a two-team expansion. Frankly, it doesn't have to be any number of teams. I think that the logical next move would be to say, all right, we've had those discussions internally. We've made decisions about cities to focus on and what the opportunity is, and now we got to go out into the marketplace. And I think that's probably the most important step, to find out who is potentially interested in owning a franchise in particular cities. What's the value of that franchise? There's some work to do in terms of potential conference realignment. So that's the next step there.
Second row in the middle.
Sorry. Relocation is not on the table right now.
Okay, so I want to point out that verbiage again. He said they won't be voting at the March meeting, but will likely come out of those meetings ready, prepared to take a next step in terms of potentially talking to interested parties. Also said it did not need to be a two-team expansion, which I think is important here when talking about Vegas and Seattle together. But he did say they've had discussions internally. That next step would be seeing who is potentially interested in owning a franchise in particular cities, what the value of that franchise is, and then the work to do in terms of potential conference realignment. That's the next step. So he is carefully watching his words there, but that is different than what he said at the start of the NBA season or even last July in Las Vegas.
Much more positive for us here in Seattle. And, I know I made this point on social media, and I know you saw it. Just for our listeners and viewers out there. The biggest difference to me is the politicians in our state that are kind of not going out of their way. They're not like making a big banner about it, but they're sort of subtly saying like, hey, pops up on Governor Ferguson's schedule. I got a call with Adam Silver. And then you caught up with Senator Cantwell and she's like, wow, Chris, I talked to the...
Yeah.
When that sort of thing happens, it's because they know something. And certainly it could be just something that, hey, they're ready to at least look. Doesn't mean they know we're getting a franchise. I think that'd be premature. I think it just means that they know the ball is starting to roll. And not only do they want to like do their part to roll out that red carpet because they know what it means, but they also want to be associated with that.
Right.
I'll give you the quickest story ever. Back when I was working in upstate New York, okay, there was a AAA baseball team in Syracuse that Senator Chuck Schumer, the famous Senator Schumer, tried so hard to get the New York Mets to buy this team because it was not actually doing very well financially. It was attendance was low, didn't have a lot of buzz around it. It's a AAA team, and Syracuse, one of the smallest AAA markets, I think, still to this day. Okay, didn't work out. The Mets made their affiliate in Buffalo, New York. Fast forward a couple years, I don't know how the heck you got my number, but all of a sudden I get a call. Niko, this is Chuck Schumer. Hi, but he's got such a distinctive voice.
Yeah.
I knew it before AI was very prevalent. It was like 2018. Just want to let you know the New York Mets are going to be buying the Syracuse Chiefs, and so on. I'm like, can I go on the record and say this? Like, oh yeah. He's like, make sure you can say Senator Schumer told you. It's because Governor Cuomo at the time actually really did a lot of the legwork of that deal, right? And so the next day is the actual announcement. It was factual, obviously, and I contribute the senator, right? Governor Cuomo sees me at the ceremony next. He's like, I did this. He gave me a look. He said, I did this. I'm like, oh. But that was just the point being there. That what the Washington politicians are doing is probably more professional in this way and much more. But that's because these folks want to be attached to this sort of thing. And so when I say I've seen this before, I've seen it in other cities and other states, but I kind of lived it. Like, okay, this was a rumor for a couple of years, but when it became to fruition, they wanted to have their name attached to it. So that first full day, the senator's name was all over it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I love the story, and you are so right. That is exactly what's going on. We saw Bruce Harrell last year, the state of the city, bring the basketball out. He wanted to be in front of it. Now the governor, Bob Ferguson, wants to be in front of it. Senator Maria Cantwell wants to be in front of it. It's the exact same thing that you experienced.
And it makes me optimistic. Yeah. Like commissioner's words, optimistic. The fact that the local leaders are starting to have their name be associated with it. It's nothing but positive. It means this ball is rolling, and let's just hope it rolls all the way to the hoop.
I like that. That
was on the fly.
That was nice. Well, we have another big interview this week, and Kirby Moore, the new head coach at Washington State University.
So excited about this. We love that the Cougs bring their head coach every year. You know, it was Coach Dicker, then of course it was Coach Rogers, and now it's Coach Moore. And I will say this, you know, Kirby, Prosser guy, local to an extent in that way. I mean, it's a cool thing for Cougs to be able to buy in with this guy. And he may be a rising star. You can never put a timeline on these things, but he genuinely does care. He cares about that community. But I want you guys to listen to his approach, his coaching mindset, how he's attacking day one. I mean, they don't want me to, but I was ready to suit up for the guys. So we're going to play you that interview right now.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head up to Hawks Peak Sports Bar and Grill at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. The place to be for game days. With over 60 TVs, you won't miss a single play, no matter where you sit. Grab your crew, your favorite bites, and your go-to drink, and catch every touchdown, dunk, or goal in style. Hawks Peak Sports Bar and Grill, where every seat is the best seat in the house. Learn more at snowcasino.com.
I mean, let's just start with the obvious, the thing you've answered probably 30 times today. Just how it's been going so far. Like, you know, what does this mean to you? Obviously, it's more significant, right? But just, you know, being the first little while here on the job, how special is that for you?
Yeah, it's been special. It's been go, 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 right? Getting in on Sunday into Pullman, coming from Missouri, walking into a team meeting with 105 guys looking at you like, what the heck, right? Naturally. And meeting them where they're at, and it's really been all about the players and meeting with them from 2 to 7. And I think the best thing with the climate right now in college football is transparency on, hey, where are you at? Are you thinking about leaving? What's been good in the program? What's something we can improve? And going through that process. And then as we're doing that, right, you're building a staff and then traveling with the team instead of sitting at a desk in Pullman. It was important to go to Boise, be around the team during the bowl process, meeting with parents, meeting with players. I think we did a good job of retention, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then naturally you're getting ready and prepared. We did guarantee the kids we were going to go back to Missouri for 3 days for Christmas, and then been in Pullman since the 27th. The portal opened on January 2nd. We've probably had about 40 to 45 guys during that period, and found a lot of really good fits.
Yeah, that's fit. It's a key word for Pullman, isn't it? Like, and you have such a unique knowledge of it. Being able to walk in the door, knowing what a fit is for WSU. I mean, how does that let you hit the ground running?
Yeah, I think right away. I mean, obviously from afar, and people have an understanding of Washington State, but I think even being at Missouri in the SEC, and that's naturally another college town where we all only got a short amount of time of someone being the starting receiver, someone being the starting quarterback, and Pullman is really a college town where it's go Cougs everywhere, right? We're at breakfast at Old European, and people are coming up to every table, hey, go Cougs, go Cougs, go Cougs, and want to know what's going on. But then it narrows guys' focus. And what do you want to get out of this from an academic standpoint and an athletic standpoint, and making sure we're doing that the right way?
Absolutely. And you can sense where I've been starting through these questions. It's just, you know, there's a ton of Cougs in our newsroom, and the ones I see out and about, it's like a big sigh of relief to them. There's a guy from Prosser that's leading the program. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, you know, how long and all that stuff. That's, you know, for the future and everything else to be decided. But what does it mean to you that, you know, this is living a dream for you, head coaching job, but you've also put this fan base at ease a little bit in that way?
Yeah, it means a lot. Take a lot of pride in that. Naturally, my dad being a high school coach in Eastern Washington, I grew up going to practice there, Mike Price and Bill Doba, and I got an older brother who's 2 years older, and usually we could hear Rob Akey yelling across the field at practice, and it was trying not to get ran over. And so we were anywhere and everywhere in terms of college football, and a lot of it happened at Washington State. And then going through, right, the collegiate experience, playing at Boise, was in Washington, don't hold that against me, for 2 years with Chris Peterson. But then you go on your own journey and learning from Jeff Tedford and Kalen DeBoer at Fresno, and then going to Missouri with Eli Drinkwitz, and so been out of the state for 10 years, and just this opportunity with the new Pac-12 conference. And I think there's an immediate vision, and the school leadership's really stepping up in a huge way, and looking forward to this fall.
Definitely, and that's just it. You know, as you know better than anybody, such a unique part of the country, Eastern Washington, right? Like, you have to be there and to know it and to understand the people there and everything like that. You know, how did that upbringing, and obviously your football family too, but you know, how did that upbringing kind of uniquely prepare you for this career, and obviously this certain, you know, stop?
Yeah, there's probably some similarities between Pullman and Prosser, right?
Yeah.
Prosser, the success that they had throughout the 90s and the 2000s, and growing up on the sideline and the 2 stoplights, but the town was shutting down, right, on Friday nights in the fall. And I think we want the same atmosphere in Pullman. And I think with the new conference, there's a ton of regional ties for our fans, for our players families. And I think we got to make Gisa Field one of the best experiences every Saturday in the fall.
It already is, though. By the side, like you get to go to a lot of places, just like you did. It's just such a special place. So, we keep talking about the timing of it, and that's, everybody talks about the portal a lot, but this is such a great time for WSU with the relaunch, so to speak, of the Pac-12. It's going to be a great league, obviously. We're super competitive. Heading into year 1 with it, it's your year 1. Like, how cool is it to kind of have that sync up like that?
Yeah, it's great. I think I told you, the conversations with the school leadership and just their emphasis is the past. And what the investment was even, let's say, a year ago comparative to what they want it to be right now. The conference is going to be super competitive. You look at the teams in that conference and the amount of bowl games that they've all gone to. It's going to be an exciting brand of football, and I think it's something our fans should look forward to.
I've always looked at this as like a 2-second rant here, like all these schools getting into the big conference. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Makes your road to the playoff that much harder. Not to say it's easy for anybody else, but there's an opportunity as a group of 5 schools, so to speak. He's still a power school, but just as they label it or whatever, to win your conference and potentially get to play on that national stage. Listen, you're focused on building this thing and all that, but that opportunity is a unique one, right?
Yeah, that opportunity is out there, and our goals are never going to change. We want to chase 2 dreams, a life with football and a life without football, develop an elite edge, and make sure we're playing for championships at a high level. But just like when I walked in the door, we got to focus on just doing the next right thing. And in terms of the day-to-day for our players right now, it's workouts, it's academics, it's study hall. We'll get into spring ball, and the games in the fall, they're coming. Right, but let's focus on what's right in front of us right now, and those things will take care of themselves. That's
such an important thing. Mike McDonald says that about every practice, and I love hearing it. It's one of those things too that like it can be tough though, right? For college kids or any football player, they just want to focus on the bigger picture. But how do you, as a coach, really instill that? Hey, let's tackle this one thing and have one practice, one whatever it might be.
Yeah, we got to live it, right? From a coaching standpoint, we got to set the standard. And our players got to feel that in terms of the energy that we're bringing on a daily basis, the details, the grit, the emotional consistency, being the same guy day in, day out, whether it's a really good practice or it's a practice that can be a lot better. We got to make sure the sun's going to come up the next day and we're the same guy. And our players got to feel the emphasis of each and every day. And I hope that carries over into the fall.
This is such a broad question, so if you need a second, I apologize. But Kirby, the head coach, what's the thing you try to instill in your guys? What's that kind of, when I say broad, and I hate asking broad questions, what's the mantra? What's the way you want to approach this as you lead these young men?
Yeah, I think it really starts with every day competing and reaching our personal best. And that's in academics, that's in athletics. I've been the head coach at Washington State for 6.5 weeks. I haven't reached my personal best, right? And so we all just got to be on that constant quest of improvement, and I got to push the staff, right? And they got to continue to improve, and that should flow into our players, and that's going to be something that's a daily emphasis.
Definitely. And from the standpoint of, the things you're able to do, I know it's the past is the past, right? But things you're able to do at Missouri on that stage against those schools, how much does that really prepare you for this opportunity?
Yeah, there's no hiding in that conference. There's no hiding in the SEC, and that's why it was really important for us to keep our 6 top O linemen at Washington State, because it all starts at the line of scrimmage. We got to be able to run the ball, stop the run, and cover kicks consistently. And adaptation is a huge part of football. You look at my last year at Fresno in 22, we had Jake Haener, and we're really good offense, throwing the ball all over the field. And then going to Missouri in 23, that offense looked different. And it's all about the players, because they're going to be making the plays on Saturdays, and we're looking forward to going through that process this spring.
And this is, again, another broad question, I apologize. Recruiting, though, has certainly changed exponentially. Just you mentioned 22, it's probably a world of difference. Yeah. Since then, you talk about adapting. How do you adapt on that front to this new world we live in that way?
Yeah, we still definitely want to be a developmental program. I think the timing obviously brings some challenges in terms of the high school standpoint this season. We still want to make sure that's a huge emphasis. That's why we're here within the Seattle area, is making sure we're not flying over anyone within the Northwest. But it was all about player retention, right? And then there's an acquisition side within the portal. And we look forward to building those relationships into this 27 class and emphasizing the high school class.
And certainly, like you mentioned, just a few days after the portal opens on that, what has been the reception, for lack of a better term, of you and your fellow new staff members as you kind of embark in building in this program?
No, it's been great. It's been great. I think, just making sure the players who are coming onto campus into Pullman have an understanding of, our style of offense, defense, special teams, what we've been a part of. They want to make sure, again, they're maximizing their window to reach their goals on and off the field.
I have to ask, again, this goes against everything you just said about next day and everything like that. But, okay, your first game, it's the Apple Cup.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much better than that, of course. It's just still a little weird since September, but digress on that one. You're going to be so locked in, I understand that, but will there be a little bit of a moment where you let it, like, okay.
I mean, there's a little bit of probably pinch yourself, right? Just everything that's transpired over the last 10 years. But it's still going to be, just like I said, we got to take care of a ton of little things throughout this offseason. We're going to have to take care of a ton of little things in that game for the big things to happen.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well where from the outside it's been really fun to watch you do your thing and have the success that you've had. Say there's a senior quarterback in college right now or somebody, what would be the advice that somebody who's playing that maybe one day wants to get into coaching? And because again, it's just been fun to watch your rise. What would be your advice to somebody in that way?
Yeah, I would first, I got into coaching because there was a number of really good coaches that I was around at Boise who were a resource for me. And part of why I was able to get on the field was not my 40 time. And, with that, I think there was a natural transition. I had some injuries my senior year. So that was my first, hey, I got the headset on. I'm trying to stay involved in the team. I'm signaling on the sideline. I'm hearing that dialogue from the coaches. Chris Peterson takes the job at Washington. So a lot of things are timing and relationship based. But I thought I was able to pass that knowledge on and be a resource for others.
Yeah, and I think that you're kind of staying in this line of questioning, so to speak, that, we know there's so many Cougs in Seattle. That's why you're here right now. For the ones that are watching this, what's the message you want to give to them about what the identity of this thing is going to be moving forward?
Yeah. I think the big thing for us is we're not going to back down from anyone. And I want Cougs, as many Cougs as possible, to come out during the offseason here with spring ball. Practices will be open. We'll start on the 26th of March. We'll have the spring game on April 25th. And then throughout the offseason, we're looking to build up to that first game. And we want to make Gisa Field one of the hardest places to play on the West Coast.
Awesome. Kirby, thank you so much.
Thank you. Go Cougs.
Well, again, thanks to Kirby for coming by, and a special shout out to Bill Stevens, sports information at WSU. Everybody who knows Bill loves Bill, and he's always taking care of everybody across the state. So we appreciate them both making the trek across our state. And going to be a fun year. The game I'm looking forward to, in addition to a weird opening week Apple Cup, would be Arizona going to Pullman. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Bill is a great dude.
Oh, one of the best, no question about it. You know who else is great? David Lee.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.